With the major escalation in Yemen's attacks against Israel last week, the IDF is planning a major response to the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Arab rebel terrorist groups in Judea and Samaria are fed up with the Palestinian Authority, and the nation of Poland just announced that they would arrest Bibi Netanyahu if he visits Auschwitz. Yes, you heard that right. Guys, we are living in some crazy times. All this and more on today's show. I'm Josiah, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection with the land and people of Israel. All right, we're going to get into today's headlines from Israel. First off, Israel is planning a major response against the Houthis. Last week saw a major escalation in attacks by the Houthis in Yemen against the nation of Israel. Just last week alone, the Houthis launched at least 3 ballistic missiles against Israel, the last of which was fired early Friday morning and injured 16 people, likely, thank God, in a residential area in Tel Aviv's Jaffa neighborhood. The IDF failed to intercept the missile, and it made contact in a residential neighborhood. Thankfully, only 16 people were lightly injured. Obviously, please pray for their recovery. Israel has already conducted several airstrikes on targets in Yemen in response to these attacks by the Houthis, but it appears that Israel is gearing up for a very forceful response on the Houthis following last week's strikes. Netanyahu said that the Houthis and their Iranian backers are learning and will learn the hard way that whoever harms Israel will pay a very heavy price for it. He also said, quote, "We will take forceful, determined, and sophisticated action against the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen." Now, it's about time for Yemen to feel the might of Israel's army, as there have not been really too many consequences for the Houthis in attacking Israel in the last year. Yes, there have been several airstrikes by the IAF, Israel's Air Force, and the U.S. Air Force in Houthi territory on Houthi targets. But for the most part, the Houthis have gone largely unchecked in their terror against Israel and also on the shipping routes in the Red Sea and in the Gulf. The terrorist Houthis need to know that you cannot mess with the apple of God's eye with no consequences. Also, the U.S. has been upping their strikes in Houthi territory. Thankfully, the United States have also been retaliating against the Houthis for the disruption of shipping routes. I say, thankfully, they're retaliating against the Houthis because Israel's not alone in this fight, and the U.S. recognizes that the Houthis pose a threat to more than just Israel. And I like to say, terrorism anywhere in the world threatens peace everywhere in the world. U.S. Air Force jet just yesterday, yesterday morning, was downed by friendly fire in one of its strikes in Yemen. Now, this is a very unfortunate case of friendly fire, but as the U.S. was attacking Houthi targets in Yemen, the U.S. lost one of its fighter jets in a friendly fire incident. According to the U.S. Central Command, 2 U.S. Navy pilots were shot down overnight on Saturday by friendly fire, while American forces were conducting strikes on Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Now, one of the pilots sustained minor injuries, according to the reports. The Times of Israel reported, quote, "The guided missile cruiser USS Gettysburg mistakenly fired on and hit the F-A-18 fighter aircraft, which Navy pilots had flown off the USS Harry S. Truman." Now, on Saturday night, I think it was early Sunday morning, the United States said it struck targets, including a missile storage facility in Yemen's rebel-held capital, Sana'a, hours after the Houthi rebel missile wounded people in Tel Aviv. U.S. forces also in this attack shot down multiple Houthi drones and anti-ship cruise missiles over the Red Sea. According to the U.S. Central Command, the two pilots safely ejected after the jet was shot down. Thank God these pilots are safe. I think one of them was injured very lightly. But this is a very good example of accidents that happen during war. And these things are especially good to keep in mind when we're talking about Israel's war for survival that has stretched on for over a year now. Accidents do happen in war, and not everything goes according to plan, especially when Israel is doing their best to avoid civilian casualties. Things don't always go according to plan. The festival of Hanukkah is coming up, and it reminds us that there is hope even in the darkest moments. Holocaust survivors, many now in their 90s, are facing another winter with empty pantries and little to keep them warm. Families living in poverty, including over 1 million children, are going to bed hungry every night, their parents overwhelmed by the rising cost due to the war. At the same time, brave IDF soldiers and reservists continue to defend Israel's borders, with many of them returning home with life-changing injuries and trauma. These men and women who risk everything to protect the land of Israel need your support. In 2024 alone, thanks to the generosity of people like you, Me'ir Panim delivered over 2.6 million meals to those in need. More than 500,000 care packages were sent to IDF soldiers and displaced families, and over 2,200 Holocaust survivors received daily hot meals and emotional support. This Hanukkah, Me'ir Panim is doing more than ever. You can help them deliver thousands of Hanukkah packages filled with treats, hot meals, and menorahs to Holocaust survivors, displaced families, IDF soldiers, and their families. You can help provide thousands of coats, heaters, scarves, and gloves to those who can't afford them, and so much more. Now is the time to act. Your kindness rekindles hope and reminds Israel that they are never alone. Just click the link in the description below to make your light shine this Hanukkah and help the people of Israel. Something that I found very interesting is happening in Judea and Samaria. Now, Palestinian rebels, or also known as Palestinian terrorist groups, are fighting with the Palestinian Authority. Seemingly, some of the terror organizations in Judea and Samaria are being inspired by the rebel takeover of Syria and are trying to throw off the Palestinian Authority's control of terror that goes on in the quote-unquote West Bank. So last week, in a stunt to try and get weapons from the US and also a retaliation against Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad for stealing one of the PA's security vehicles, the PA, the Palestinian Authority, conducted a terror raid in Jenin, the Palestinian town of Jenin, also a terror hub, and ended up killing a commander of the PIJ terror group, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So now this quote-unquote resistance camp, or they're calling themselves the Resistance, which is comprised basically of Hamas, the PIJ, and the PFLP. So the PIJ is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror group, and the PFLP is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. It's kind of a mouthful. So these three organizations are calling themselves the Resistance in Judea and Samaria, and just issued a statement condemning the brutality of the Palestinian Authority, which is kind of ironic, considering that many nations consider that the PA is one of the more moderate terrorist organizations inside Judea and Samaria, what the world calls the West Bank. So in this statement, they said, quote, "We reaffirm our commitment to the necessity of containing the recent events in Jenin to safeguard Palestinian lives and protect the resistance. We are following with great pain and deep concern the developments in Jenin amidst the unfortunate escalation of the security campaign carried out by the Palestinian Authority's security forces," end quote. Now, this is from Channel 7 News. They said the resistance leadership called for protests across Judea and Samaria against the Palestinian Authority, starting with a general strike on Monday, today, followed by mass protests on Wednesday after the midday prayer, demanding the withdrawal of the Palestinian Arab security forces from the Jenin camp. And on Thursday, a lights out campaign in the homes in the evening to highlight the lack of electricity in the Jenin camp for the past 20 days. Now, I think they're calling for peaceful protests against the Palestinian Authority, but as things go when you're a part of a terrorist group, I don't think their peaceful protest is anywhere inside their vocabulary. They probably had to look that up on Wikipedia to find out what that means. But things are getting very interesting in Judea and Samaria. Now you're seeing these terrorist groups, instead of joining together, which actually they're accusing the PA of not doing. They're trying to join together with the PA, but instead of doing that, they're now starting to fight against each other. They're fighting against the PA. The PA is now trying to put on these stunts of terror raids, trying to eliminate terror in Judea and Samaria, which, anybody with any moral clarity can see right through when you look at the history of the Palestinian Authority. But now these groups are fighting each other and causing disruptions in Judea and Samaria, which is good because it's going to keep them from being united against their enemy, or who their enemy is, and their goal of eliminating all Jews from the entire land of Israel, not just in Judea and Samaria. Okay, so some very strange things are happening in the world today. All these wars in the Middle East, Israel fighting for her survival for the last year, almost a year and a half. And now Poland threatens to arrest the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, if he goes to Auschwitz. So the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz is coming up on January 27th. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, was planning to attend this event. Well, not anymore. The Deputy Foreign Minister of Poland has confirmed that Poland will arrest Bibi if he goes to Auschwitz. Now, this is because of the arrest warrant issued by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for alleged war crimes committed by Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, the previous defense minister in Israel, in Gaza. Alleged war crimes. They issued this arrest warrant. So the Deputy Foreign Minister of Poland said that they would uphold the ICC's decision. Now, I want you guys to realize the craziness of that statement, the craziness of this headline. If Netanyahu, the prime minister of the only Jewish state in the world, goes to Auschwitz, the site where hundreds of thousands of Jews were murdered, I believe over millions of Jews were murdered, not exactly sure the exact number, I believe it's over 1 million, at least in that one camp, he will be arrested for war crimes. In the very place where these horrific crimes against humanity were actually committed against the Jews, and the people who committed those crimes are supposed to be judged by the very same court who is now trying to arrest Netanyahu, who, by the way, is leading the nation of Israel in their fight for survival against enemies who are actually trying to eliminate Jews again. Now, how twisted up can this be? And I would say one thing, it would be one thing if Netanyahu was actually guilty of war crimes, and this would be actually viable. And yes, they should arrest Netanyahu if he was guilty of war crimes. But no, this whole ICC trial, this arrest warrant, is just a modern day blood libel against the nation of Israel. Now, many countries of the world have actually condemned the ICC, including several of the members of the International Criminal Court in Europe has said they will not uphold the decision and will not arrest Netanyahu if he comes into their country. But many nations have condemned the ICC for this arrest warrant against Israel, saying that it is an absolute crazy mess. Now, in the midst of all these crazy things that are happening, the nations trying to arrest Netanyahu, more nations attacking Israel, wars going on all over the place. Here's a piece of positive news from Israel. So Hanukkah is starting here in Israel on Wednesday night. And in the spirit of this holiday, Israel's security forces are taking rocket pieces and making a menorah for Hanukkah to spread the light in this time of darkness. Now, this is from Channel 7 News. It says, ahead of Hanukkah, police explosive disposal experts decided to take on a project that would display the transition from darkness to light that the residents of northern Israel experienced over the past year. As part of the project, the experts took parts of missiles that ended lives and brought great darkness to many and turned them into a menorah, what they call in Israel, Hanukkah, that will spread a light of hope. Over the course of this holiday, the menorah will pass through various locations in northern Israel, illuminating light, and they will be lit by officers from the Northern District Police, bereaved families, and residents from the north. Now, I will say that this amazing story and this amazing headline exemplifies the resilience of the spirit of Israel, that even in Israel's darkest of times, the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, still finds a way to make their light shine. I have a scripture that I want to leave you with today before we close out the show that is appropriate for what is going on in the world today in regard to Israel. This is from Psalms 2, 1 through 6. You're probably familiar with this. It says, why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion. Guys, even as the nations of the world are conspiring and plotting against the people of Israel, God is in heaven and he is laughing at what is going on, and he will hold the nations of the world in derision. Guys, don't forget to go support Meir Panim and help them feed the poor in Israel. Also, feel free to click the link below to check out our end of the year fundraising campaign and get some exclusive Israel Guys merch as our gift to you. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Guys.